I used to hate living in my apartment. Despite my efforts to make it as comfortable and decorated as possible, I abhorred the building's location, deep in the heart of San Francisco, California, right near a busy junction. Traffic piled up so badly that I couldn't open a window without being blasted by an orchestra of roaring engines, blaring horns, and tires screeching across the asphalt. It was even worse at night when the building across from me threw loud parties. Being in the city was almost as bad as the apartment itself. On top of all that noise, I'd constantly get jostled and bruised just trying to walk down the sidewalk. I grew up in the rural outskirts of Boston, so I was still adjusting to an environment that only seemed to grow more unwelcoming. If it weren't for the high-paying bank clerk job I landed, I never would have moved here. So now I was stuck in a fortress of concrete and noise, no wilderness, no open land in sight. And now, I couldn't be happier. Well, I'm not in my apartment anymore. I'm currently lying in a hospital bed in Utah. From where I am, I can't even see a single tree. I moved to San Francisco a year ago, and, as I said, I had a hard time adjusting. I'd often escape the city, either by visiting family in quieter rural areas or going on solo camping trips. My favorite destination being the wilds of Utah. Sure, it's a bit of a drive for a weekend camping trip, but I always plan things precisely to maximize my time there and get back on schedule. That summer, after weeks of grinding away at work and even getting promoted, I decided to reward myself with a 5-day camping trip to Utah. My employer was generous enough to approve the time off. My plan was to hit the road early, before sunrise, make a few stops to stretch my legs, and arrive at my campsite by dawn. That morning I packed up, kept the apartment windows tightly shut to block out the brain-rattling urban noise, and practically flew down the highway headed south. The drive was long, but luck was on my side. There was almost no traffic, and I arrived ahead of schedule. Thinking back, I winced at how naive I was. After being trapped for so long in such a chaotic part of the country, the quiet, peaceful woods were beyond welcoming. Even the drive was soothing. Watching those skyscrapers fade away in the rearview mirror as I was slowly swallowed by greenery was pure bliss. When I reached the parking area, it was mostly empty. A lone bicycle chained to a post caught my eye, which I found odd. The summer was usually prime camping season, and the weather had been great for weeks. But I wasn't going to complain. Whether the camping ground was packed or deserted, I had planned to go solo, and I wasn't afraid of the woods. Strapping on my heavy rucksack, loaded with a tent, food, water, spare clothes, and a canister of bear spray, just in case, I began my hike into the trees. Towering trunks and thick green canopies surrounded me. Sunlight filtered through in warm golden rays. Birds chirped, small animals rustled, streams trickled nearby, and fresh air filled my lungs. It was perfect. The weather, the scenery, the quiet, all of it was perfect. After several miles of hiking with a few short breaks, I climbed a large hill overlooking a wide river and decided it was the ideal place to make camp. My tent wasn't much, just a dome-shaped blue thing built for two, but it was good enough. After setting it up, I cleared a patch of earth for a fire, collected dry wood, and soon had a modest but cozy blaze crackling just as the sun dipped behind the horizon. Night fell quickly after, and I sat by the fire with some bread, canned food, and a bottle of water for dinner. As I ate, I let myself be absorbed by the sounds of the wilderness. The gentle wind whispering through the leaves, birds chirping in the distance, crickets beginning their nightly chorus. Even the food tasted better than usual. I was proud of myself for planning this trip. But then, from the calm, rhythmic melody of the woods, a strange sound cut through the dark. The spoon was still in my mouth when I froze. Slowly, I turned my head toward the sound just as it echoed again. My first thought was an owl, but something about it was off. The sound was deeper, more drawn out than any owl I had heard before. There was something about it I didn't like. Maybe it was just unfamiliar. Maybe it was just curiosity. But looking back, I should have packed up right then and there. The sound continued for another minute, then stopped as suddenly as it had started. I stared into the dark for a while, eventually returning to my food. The rest of the night passed quietly. No more hoots, no odd noises. I slept through the night and woke up in peace. Nature may have been calm, but I wasn't. I wouldn't say I was paranoid, but that hooting stuck in my mind. I'm no expert on wildlife, and sure, unfamiliar animal calls weren't a reason to panic. Still, I couldn't shake it. The sound was unlike anything I'd heard before. It wasn't just a deep owl call, there was something wrong with it, something I couldn't place. To clear my head, I woke up early and hiked down the wide, calm river below. The morning sun cast golden bands across the crystal water. It was gorgeous, almost enough to make me forget. Almost. Looking to my left, I spotted a massive boulder at the river's edge. I climbed it for a better view, and that's when I saw them. Footprints. The footprints on the other side of the river were large. My first thought was that a very tall person had passed through recently, but the spacing between each print seemed too far apart, even for the longest of human strides. Then I wondered if they were bear tracks. But no. Even from across the water, I could tell that whatever made those impressions had walked on two legs. Like I said before, I'm no wildlife expert. But I knew there was nothing native to North America that left prints like those. And then the hooting echoed in my memory. A creeping unease washed over me. I tried to shake it off, to come up with any explanation. Maybe the angle was throwing me off. Maybe the tracks were from a normal animal and just looked strange from a distance. Maybe a really tall hiker had come through. Maybe one of those ostriches some people farm had escaped and somehow wandered this far. Anything to avoid the growing pit of dread in my stomach. I didn't want to go back to the chaos of the city just because I saw some weird footprints and heard some strange noises. Despite my nerves, the rest of the day passed uneventfully. I hiked without my pack, soaking in the sights and sounds and smells of nature. The wind in the trees, the crunch of earth beneath my boots. I felt free, unburdened. I still had several days left to enjoy, and I wanted to make every moment last. That night, I had another quiet evening. Ate, drank, then crawled into my tent. I'd relaxed enough to forget the hoots and prints entirely. Until, after what felt like only minutes of sleep, my eyes shot open. I stared up at the ceiling of the tent, confused about why I'd woken up. Then I heard it. Movement. Something was walking around my campsite. At first, I assumed it was a raccoon, maybe a rabbit, but the footsteps were too heavy. Then I wondered if a deer had wandered in, but that hope vanished the moment I saw its silhouette through the fabric of the tent. The moon was full and bright, casting shadows clearly. Something tall, large. It moved upright, sniffing the ground where I'd been sitting earlier. Then it slowly crept towards the right side of the tent. I held my breath. It was on two legs. I could see that clearly now. It had front limbs that hung like arms, a long snout, and, what chilled me the most, a tail. A long, thick tail that swayed as it moved. Frozen in place, I kept my breathing slow and shallow. The creature's head lowered next to mine, separated from me only by a thin sheet of nylon. Its snout pressed into the tent, sniffing deeply mere inches from my face. My eyes began to water from fear and from not blinking. Sweat rolled down my cheeks. I realized with a jolt of horror that it could smell me. It could smell my sweat. I nearly gasped at the realization, and the creature paused. Then, after a moment, it stood upright again. It made a low, deep chirping sound, followed by a series of rapid clicks. I reached for the knife I'd kept in my pocket, just in case. My fingers closed around the handle. But then, to my disbelief, the creature simply walked away. I lay there in stunned silence. I waited a full minute before I finally allowed myself to breathe. Relief came, but it didn't ease my fear. And then, my eyes flew open once again. The sound was loud, clear. That hooting that I had thought was an owl, it came from this thing. I barely slept the rest of the night, even though I didn't hear it return. The moment the sun rose, I made my mind up. I was leaving. No more delays, no more excuses. When I stepped out of the tent, everything seemed normal. But then I looked down. Tracks surrounding the tent, around the fire pit. The prints were enormous. 2 toes extending in sharp claws. Whatever it was had walked upright, and it had stalked me as I slept. I packed in record time, adrenaline pounding in my ears. I shouldered my gear and headed straight toward the direction of the parking lot. It would take a couple of hours to reach it, but I didn't care. I had a compass, I had my phone, and I had every nerve in my body screaming at me to run. I don't know what the creature was. I don't know what it wanted, but something primal inside of me, the instinct that warns a deer that it's being watched, was in full alarm. I walked fast. Too fast. After about 30 minutes, my legs started to burn. My shoulders ached from the weight of my pack. My throat was dry. I finally stopped, leaning against a tree, and dropped my bag beside me. I needed a breather. I pulled out my canister and took a long drink, groaning as the cold water soothed my throat. I froze. It was close. Much closer than before. Worse, it was coming from the direction I was heading. That thing was ahead of me, waiting. I pressed my back tight to a tree, scanning the woods in desperation. My knife was out, so was the bear spray. I was sweating again, panicking again, and I tried to wipe myself dry. That smell might be how it was tracking me. Then I saw movement, something light brown, maybe 30 meters to my left, creeping quietly between the trees. It blended in well with the trunks and brush, but I saw it. It was circling, coming closer. Thank God for my 20/20 vision. It paused. I could just barely see it now. One yellow eye locked onto me through the foliage. The staring contest began, neither of us blinking. It was intelligent, I could tell. What was it planning? An ambush? A rush? Then an idea struck me. Still watching it, I carefully crouched and reached into my bag. I fumbled around until I found a packet of beef jerky. Without looking away, I dunked the bag in water, soaked the meat until the scent was overwhelming. I held it up where the creature could see it. With one arm still gripping the knife, I slowly swung the soaked jerky bag in wide arcs. Then, I hurled it as far as I could. The wet, pungent meat splattered into the brush. The creature's gaze followed it, and then it moved. I didn't wait. I grabbed what essentials I could, left my bag behind, and started making a wide arc around the creature's path, heading back towards the parking lot as fast as I could manage. Before disappearing from view, I looked back over my shoulder. It was there, half hidden by the greenery, and beside it was another one. There were two of them. I hadn't even noticed the second. It was slightly smaller, with similar coloring, light brown feathers with white streaks. They were both fixated on the bag I'd thrown, but I didn't stay too long to watch. My fear doubled. I picked up the pace, my footsteps quick but quiet, heart hammering in my chest. Any calm I'd held onto was gone. Every noise, every bird call, every rustle sent spikes of panic through my spine. I kept glancing over my shoulder. Paranoia grew with every step. I fumbled with my compass to make sure I was still on the right path. I was, though I had drifted a little. Realizing this, I realigned myself and began to run, nearly tripping over a root. I didn't care. I just needed to reach the parking lot. Needed to find people. That's when I heard it. Help! I stopped dead in my tracks. A voice, distant but clear. Someone was calling for help. I turned in all directions, heart caught in my throat. Help! They cried again. It didn't sound far, but I was being stalked, hunted. I'd only just managed to distract those creatures. If I encountered someone injured, they could slow me down. Help! The voice cried out once more. I hesitated. Then I cursed under my breath and changed direction. I couldn't leave someone here to die, not without trying. Branches slapped against me as I ran. The underbrush was thick, but I moved with purpose, weaving between trees and bounding over fallen logs. Help! I skidded to a stop at the top of a sudden slope. Below, in a small clearing, lay a person, face down, unmoving. A light blue jacket stood out starkly against the forest floor. I cursed again and sprinted down the hill, scanning the clearing as I moved. I was just a few meters away when I noticed something that stopped me cold. Blood. There was blood on their jacket, their exposed skin, a lot of it too. Too much. The stench hit me. Rotting meat. Decay. The person wasn't alive, they'd been dead a while. And then, just as I turned to flee, help! I froze. That voice, it came from the body, but it wasn't them. It was wrong. It mimicked human speech, but the words were distorted like a parrot mimicking a phrase it didn't understand. Croaky, flat, artificial. And it was my voice. It was a trap. Something charged from behind. I didn't turn. I threw myself sideways and swung my knife blindly. Something heavy collided with my arm, knocking me to the ground. I scrambled up, running for cover amongst the trees. I risked a look behind me, and that's when I saw it in full. A dinosaur. A real, living dinosaur. Not a bird. A raptor. It stood over 7 feet tall and stretched nearly 20 feet in length. Its long snout was lined with sharp curved teeth. Its entire body was covered in feathers, dark orange with bold blue stripes, long wing-like arms tipped with green feathers, and a massive fan of tail plumage swaying behind it. It let out an angry click as it turned toward me. Yellow eyes locked onto mine beneath a crest of red markings and narrow bones. It stalked forward with slow, calculated steps. I was frozen. It was real. Why? How? Dinosaurs were supposed to be extinct. This had to be a dream. With the cold sweat on my back, the pain in my lungs, the pounding of my heart, everything was too vivid, too real. I edged backward, putting a tree between us. I tried to move uphill, keeping my knife ready. The raptor didn't like that. It charged, fast. I barely dodged in time. Its jaws snapped inches from my shoulder, and I slashed with my blade, missing. I made the mistake of turning to crawl uphill, but only made it a few feet before it pounced. Its full weight crashed down on me. Air exploded from my lungs. I screamed as its jaws clamped down on my left forearm, shredding my jacket and skin. I felt its hot breath on my neck as it tried to tear the limb from my shoulder. My ribs creaked from the pressure. Then came the claws. Its sickle-shaped toe claw plunged into my shoulder, digging deep into the muscle, pinning me like prey. Its other claws raked at my side, and I howled louder than I had ever done in my life. I was dying. It was eating me. Every regret I'd ever had flashed before my eyes. Not leaving when I heard the hooting, ignoring the tracks, charging into a trap. But I had one last chance. Summoning every ounce of strength, I swung my knife backward blindly. The blade connected. The raptor shrieked and leapt off of me. The moment its claw left my body, adrenaline surged. I scrambled to my feet, grabbed the bear spray from my pocket, and swung it blindly behind me. I heard the raptor hiss in irritation, but I didn't stop to check. I ran. I ran harder than I ever had before. The forest became a blur around me. My breath tore from my throat, and still I pushed faster. I glanced left, then right. No sign of pursuit. But that didn't mean anything. I pressed on, barely believing the speed I'd reached. I could have outrun a horse. And just as I dared to think I might make it, my foot caught on something. A root, a rock, my own exhaustion. It didn't matter. I flew forward and slammed into the ground, tumbling through the underbrush. My shoulder struck a tree. The shoulder. The one that had been punctured. Agony exploded. I screamed. The pain was unbearable. My arm was nearly shredded. Blood poured freely, flesh torn down to the bone, my vision blurred, ears ringing. I couldn't move. I couldn't even think. I slumped against the tree, whimpering and sobbing. Tears ran down my face. My breath came in wet, choking gasps. I'd failed. I was about to die here. Remembering my phone, I fumbled it from my pocket, but the screen was cracked. Useless. I screamed out loud. "Please! Help! Someone please help me!" No one came. "Help me!" Still nothing. And then, "Help me!" My own voice echoed back at me. But it wasn't me. "Please! Help me!" They were copying me, mimicking my desperation. "Please! Help! Help! Please!" It came from everywhere, all around me, surrounding me. They were using my own cries for help as bait, as camouflage. I was the unprotected lamb, and the pack of wolves had arrived. I curled up into myself, trembling, choking on my own panic. The mimicry swirled around me, overlapping, echoing, my own voice warped, fragmented, distorted. A nightmare turned real. I couldn't tell where they were anymore. 10 feet away? 50? Right behind me? I was done. A shadow to my left, a rustle to my right. I squeezed my eyes shut. I was going to die. Here, torn apart in the dirt like some wounded animal. Just another whisper among the trees. And then, a sound I wasn't expecting. A howl, followed by barking. Dogs, loud, sharp, furious. I flinched when 2 large dogs, a German shepherd and a husky, burst through the trees, both leashed and snarling. Behind them came their owner, a broad, bearded man in hiking gear. He spotted me. His eyes widened. I remembered him, shouting something, rushing over. The dogs sniffed me, nudged me. One of them whined as I groaned. The man asked what happened, and I couldn't respond. The last thing I remember was the forest exploding into chaos behind us. Dogs barking, something crashing through the brush, the man dragging me across the forest floor as I faded in and out of consciousness. Then, gravel. I was on the parking lot pavement, safe, barely. Just before I passed out, I looked toward the tree line, and I saw them. The raptors stood at the edge of the forest. The largest, the one that had attacked me, had a fresh slash over its right eye, leaving dark blood. Beside it stood the other 2, one matching its coloring, the other a lighter brown with white markings. They didn't move. They just watched. I saw something in their eyes, not confusion, not fear. Anger. They had lost their prey. And then everything went to black. I woke up 3 days later in a Utah hospital bed, sitting upright, disoriented. A nurse calmed me, explained where I was. At first, I couldn't remember why I was there. But when I shifted and pain tore through my ribs and arm, it all came rushing back. I panicked, screamed. Nurses and doctors flooded the room. I kept babbling about raptors, real raptors, until someone injected me with something to calm me down. When I woke up again, a police officer was waiting. He asked me what had happened. I told him I needed time to gather my thoughts. He nodded and stepped outside, giving me an hour. I asked the nurse for my phone, and now I'm here, typing this all out. The officer is still waiting. He's probably going to look at me like I'm insane when I tell him that creatures from Jurassic Park are alive and hunting people in the Utah wilderness. and that they can mimic voices to lure humans into traps. But that's not what matters right now. What matters is that I survived. I'm going home, back to my apartment, back to the concrete and the steel, the honking horns, the shouting crowds, the unbearable noise. Back to a place with people, with buildings, with cell signal and police and neighbors across the hall. No wilderness in sight. And I couldn't be happier. But as for you, the one reading this, I leave you with a warning. Don't just avoid camping. Warn everyone you know, family, friends, co-workers, authorities, wildlife agencies, anyone who will listen. Tell them there are things in the woods. Things that shouldn't exist. Things that are killing people. If they don't believe you, show them this story. Show them the part where someone died. The part where something tried to kill me. Let them laugh. Let them doubt. And then maybe, hopefully, they'll start to look. Before it's too late.